Hey everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful 3-tiered cake that featured a stencil embossed gold tier, some edible gold leaf, and I'm also going to show you how I made this floral ring. So if this sounds interesting, please stick around. We'll get to the floral ring a little later on, but first of all, we're going to go ahead and get our cake ready. So I started off with 2 tiers of pre-layered and, filled and crumb-coated cake. The bottom tier is actually a foam dummy. That's a good trick when you need to add some height to a cake, but you don't need all that extra cake. Just use a foam dummy. You can decorate it just like a cake. So I'm using my American Buttercream to put on the final layer of buttercream on these 2 tiers. Now I'm using a piping bag to apply it because I don't like to get my hands all sticky all the time. And also it helps to force some of those air bubbles out, that even if you have a bubble-free buttercream, if it sits for more than a day, it will develop some air bubbles again. And instead of re-whipping it, I just went ahead and pushed it through a piping bag. And once you get the sides level and you're cleaning up the top, just go ahead and pull that extra ring of frosting in towards the center. And then do the same thing for your middle tier. Again, I'm applying the buttercream with the piping bag, and then I'm going to smooth it with my scraper. And I like to use an offset spatula for the top to level out that top. Sometimes I'll use the offset spatula on the sides also. I ran out of buttercream in my bag, and instead of refilling it again for that small amount, I just went ahead and applied it with the offset spatula. Either way works. Now the key to scraping down your sides is to hold your scraper so that it is flat against the bottom of the board. I think you could have seen me do that if you knew that's what I was going to say. You would have noticed. There you can see it. I'm holding that bottom edge flat to the board, and that way you're guaranteeing that your sides are going to be level. And I am varying my different scrapers. Sometimes different ones work better for different things. The smaller ones, sometimes I feel like I'm a little more in control of getting those bubbles out, and the big one I like to use to do kind of the final scraping. If the buttercream is bubble free, I will a lot of times just go ahead and use the tall one because I'm not trying to get all those bubbles out. That's just basically your final scrapings is what you're doing with the tall one when your buttercream is more fresh. Not that this is bad, it just sat on the counter for a day. Now we're going to go ahead and roll out our fondant for that bottom tier. And I'm going to do an upside down method to get the buttercream, the fondant on the top of the cake. You don't have to do it this way. I just find that this works better for me to cut the sides, the excess fondant off around the actual foam dummy. It's just a little easier. Now I drape the fondant on there, and I had put some shortening on it before I put the fondant on it. I'm going to put a disc. You could just use a cake board if you want to turn upside down, and see how easy it is to just cut that right up against the cake dummy. And then flip it over and you have your top done. And I measured the height and the width or the distance around so that I know how wide I need to roll this piece of fondant out. I'm going to do this in a paneling method. I'm just making sure that it is the same thickness all the way down, and I'm brushing on some shortening. This is how I'm going to do the embossing. I'm brushing on some shortening so that the stencil will not move around when I am doing the embossing. It just sticks right to it, and that also helps to get the gold to stick to the fondant. The shortening gets it to stay on there, and just use your rolling pin to press down, roll over it to emboss the pattern. And before you take your stencil off, get a fluffy brush and some gold luster dust and brush it on there. And it will stick to the whole thing, but when you pull the stencil off, it will be left just where your fondant is embossed. The fondant underneath is basically the same height, same level as the stencil at this point since you had rolled it out. So you're getting this just on the pattern. See how pretty that is? And then we're gonna do this all the way across. I went ahead and rinsed it off a little bit in between because you're gonna have some overflow of that gold luster. You can see it on where I did that first one, but I'm going to cut that off anyway, so it's okay. And do the same thing on your second piece. I kind of wish I'd gotten them closer together, but Since you're not doing a paint with the luster dust, it very easily rubs off. So I didn't want to stick that stencil on top of where I had already stenciled. I just put the cake dummy on its side. It's a little easier to drape that fondant. I wish I had kind of let the fondant sit out a little longer, because you can see it's a little bit too elastic at this point. I ended up having to mess with it more than I wanted to. And you can see there is some gold on the top there that transferred from where I was touching the cake, because I had to, but most of that's going to be covered with your next tier. And here I'm showing you how you can clean it up with just some Everclear and a brush. And you can do that on the top also, and that cleans off that extra gold. Now, yeah, I'm using my scissors. These are kitchen scissors. Scissors are dedicated kitchen scissors. You could put, in hindsight, I kind of wish I had done this a little different. With the cutting off that excess, I kind of wish I had set it in the refrigerator so that the fondant would have firmed up and would have been easier to cut off that excess. But that's okay. Live and learn, right? You guys know, if you've been watching me for a while, that when I wish I had done something different, I will tell you so that you learn from my experiments. And then this edible gold leaf on the top. The cake had some condensation on it, just a little bit of moisture, since I took it out of the fridge 10 minutes before I needed it. And that's what gets your gold leaf to stick. If you don't have that and your fondant or your buttercream is dry, just go ahead and spritz it or brush on a little water and it'll stick that way. And here I am using just some dried flowers, a mixture of dried flowers and some artificial flowers that look like dried flowers to decorate this gold ring. And I'm just using some floral tape that you stretch to activate to attach your first piece. Since I wanted it to be catty corner on the side, I wanted to start at the high point and build up as I go down. And then I just wrapped some extra pieces. I took like 3 or 4, what are these called? I'm not sure what they're called. I don't know, but 3 or 4 of the stems, I will say stems, wrap them together first, and then I'm using some floral wire here to add a mixture of floral wire and floral tape to get it to stick, because I knew that I was going to be decorating it. So you're not going to see that green floral tape. If you want to, you can buy brown. I just didn't have it, didn't know I needed it, so I didn't order it. So I just cut off the extra parts of the stems, and I'm just wrapping it on the other side also, exactly the same way on the other side. And then start, as you work your way down towards the middle, start where you want your flowers to be attached. Start taping those on 1 or 2 flowers at a time. And then you'll end up towards the middle, and that's where I put my big flower, was in the middle. And then if you want to add some filler, you can add some filler and just wrap some more tape around it. And sometimes they'll just stick and you don't need tape. You just kind of stick them in there. That's when you get lucky. And there it is, all done and ready to put on the cake. Now I'm making kind of a little clothespin out of my floral wire there to help attach it. You can see I'm sticking it into the foam on the bottom. And you don't have to do this part. I wanted to add some ribbon. I thought that was going to be pretty, but you can leave it as is if you want. And I am just doing a simple bow with this satin ribbon. You could use lace ribbon too. I kind of messed with that idea, but I ended up just sticking with the pink satin ribbon because I thought it tied all the pinks in together. I thought maybe that the lace ribbon might have blended in too much. I wanted that to be visible. There it is, guys. This could be a wedding cake. This could be a baby shower. This could be a wedding shower, or simply just because you want a pretty birthday cake. So I hope you guys liked it, and I hope you give it a try. And don't think you have to do all these tiers. You can just do 1 or 2 if you want. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.